I'm so happy you've come to visit us here at the Girl Scout Halley. This house is very special to me. I remember as queen, I picnicked here with the Sunday school children in 1889. John T. Waterhouse owned it then, and we had so much fun. I enjoyed and wanted to support those children, just as I wanted to support the new Girl Scout organization here in Hawaii. You know that Girl Scouting began here in Hawaii only 5 years after it started on the mainland by Juliet Gordon Low. It began for me when a group of girls from the factory district of Kaka'ako formed one of the first troops. In October of 1917, I was honored to receive a letter from their leader, Mrs. Mabel Chilson. She wrote,
in view of the fact that an organization of the Girl Scouts is about to be formed, I am writing to find out whether or not it would be possible to have the Queen's personal sanction of the work. It would seem delightful and charming if Her Majesty would allow the girls to call their first troop the Liliuokalani Troop. What do you think of it? I speak with some authority when I say that the Queen's approval of a Girl Scout movement would be hailed with delight by the girls and their organizer, Mrs. William Knott. Sincerely yours, Mrs. Mabel Chilson.
In response to this, my Chamberlain, Mr. Curtis Iaukea, wrote to Mrs. Chilson, Dear Madam,
I am happy to say that Her Majesty has graciously consented to have the first troop of Girl Scouts formed in Honolulu named after her, and, in earnest of her full sympathy and accord, the Queen has authorized me to arrange for an occasion when the Liliuokalani troop may come to the Washington Palace and receive at her hands a silk pennant.
Sincerely, Mr. Curtis Iaukea, Chamberlain to Queen Liliuokalani.
As the Kaka'ako troop came together, another group began a troop at the Kamehameha School for Girls. The Hibiscus Troop was the first on Oahu to be officially recognized by the National Girl Scout Organization. Originally established in Savannah, Georgia in 1912, the Mainland Girl Scouts movement was to be a character-building program, encouraging girls of the early century in recreational and community service activities. The goal for the Hawaii girls was no less. By mid-February 1918, there were 3 troops in Honolulu, with more forming in Manoa and Kaimuki. Each troop was named after a native flower in Hawaii. Minutes from one of the first Oahu Girl Scout Council meetings reflected society's expectations of young women in the early 20th century. A council member had suggested that the leaders encourage domestic things among the girls. In a time when women were full-time homemakers, the young girls were taught domestic skills. The Scouts also used these skills in their communities. In World War I, Girl Scouts knitted stockings and hemmed handkerchiefs for overseas soldiers. They also grew flowers and gave them to children in hospitals or to the elderly at the Lunalilo home. But the young girls also enjoyed the outdoors, and camping was a particular favorite. The Kaka'ako troop would go camping in the wilds of Kahala. The girls camped everywhere, on the beaches and in the mountains. Unlike other young women of the early 1900s, the young scouts learned to bugle and signal, and to make an open fire and cook over it. Parading on Armistice Day, the Girl Scouts showed off both their marching skills and their tropical white uniforms, unique to Hawaii. As recognition of scouting grew on Oahu, girls on the other islands became interested. In April 1919, girls from the Big Island asked the Oahu Council for camping tips. Soon, scout councils were established on the islands of Hawaii and Maui. Girl Scouting became so popular on Oahu that Territorial Governor Charles J. McCarthy proclaimed the week of February 8, 1921, as Girl Scout Week.
The girls of today become the homemakers of tomorrow. Through the spirit of play, the girls come to a knowledge of the 5 phases of a woman's life today: of the homemaker, the producer, the consumer, the citizen, and the human being.
In 1926, the Oahu Council purchased Camp Hale'opua on the Pearl City Peninsula. The camp became a favorite because of its singing tree. In the 1930s, Lucille Smith Mistitian and Miriam Deshay Dowson attended the camp.
Some of the fun of going down to camp was how to get there. A lot of us would go down to the depot and get the train, and we'd go as far as Pearl City, the junction, and then we'd get on the what we call the Tunaville trolley, and it would take us down the peninsula. And we're carrying all our luggage. Our town was small in those days. You know, you could get the boundaries maybe from 1 Avenue to 13th Avenue. So when you went beyond that, you were really, going for
Down
an
in the
adventure.
country. Down in the country. We just climbed up that tree because at that time we were wearing bloomers. We were not able to wear shorts, so we'd climb up there and somebody would have an ukulele and we would sing all kinds of songs. And that's the most I remember of the singing tree. And one would think birds were singing in a tree. They had a long pier extending out from the camp, and we used to spend many times just out there talking, enjoying, and telling stories out on the pier. And then one day we decided we were going to go clam digging, and we went clamming. Of course, it was really very muddy, but it was something different and something we enjoyed doing. I mean, it's something special for us because we never did it before.
To me, that stands out the most. I learned a lot from girls. And I guess it's stuff that, everybody knows how to do today. For instance, one of the badges was housekeeping, and one of the questions was, do you dust first before you sweep? I mean, little things like that. But see, we're kind of young too, so it's all learning.
We learned a lot, and we went on excursions and visited, different factories, which none of us would have had the opportunity of doing. I owe lots of my happy times of my life as a Girl Scout, really and truly.
One Sunday morning in 1941, Hawaii's happy times were changed irrevocably. Gone were the singing tree and the long pier. The camp was taken over by the military due to its proximity to Pearl Harbor. Wartime scouts joined the Office of Civil Defense and, like their World War I predecessors, helped out on the home front. Peacetime meant a resurgence for scouting. The girls hit the streets selling a local version of Scout cookies, macadamia nuts. In 1963, the Hawaii Girl Scouts joined with the troops from Midway and Wake Islands to form the Girl Scout Council of the Pacific. As society changed, so did the Scouts. No longer were the girls limited to the homemaker role laid out for them in the early 1900s. they had new role models, such as astronauts like Tammy Jernigan, businesswomen like Joan Bixson, community leaders like Lin Wai-hei, performers like Melinda Carroll, and journalists like Ann Botticelli.
When I was 10, pondering what I would be when I grew up, I thought of office receptionist, beautician, now known as cosmetologist, or stewardess.
In 1995, a time capsule was sealed behind the Girl Scout Halle as Tammy Jernigan flew overhead in her shuttlecraft in deep space. 25 years from now, these young girls as adults will open the capsule and will be able to look back to an earlier day of scouting.
Girl Scouts are a family, and they show us what we can be.
What is Hawaiian music? To some, an ancient chant. Or the easy strumming of an ukulele or steel guitar. To others, a robust royal march performed with great vigor and dignity. For many, it's a language and sweet vocal quality that is unmistakably Hawaiian, nahe nahe. In truth, Hawaiian music is all these things and more. It's a natural connection with everything that is Hawaii. The music is indelibly tied to the heart and soul of the islands. It is as integral to Hawaiian experience as is the ocean, the land, and its people. Through the years, Hawaiian music has had global recognition and impact. In 1994, to honor and celebrate the great tradition that is Hawaiian music, the Hawaiian Music Hall of Fame was created. From literally hundreds of names to choose from, a Blue Ribbon Advisory Board chose 10 names that represented significant contributions to Hawaiian music. More names and a permanent museum are to be added in the future. From a pre-contact kahuna, to the royal composers, to the stars of Waikiki, these are the legends of Hawaiian music, names that will live on for generations to come. E hi'ipoi e nā makamaka po'okea, to cherish our gifted ones. It was a night to remember. The newly created Hawaiian Music Hall of Fame held its inaugural event, an invitation-only reception held at Washington Place to unveil a traveling display that is currently the centerpiece of the organization, and to celebrate and honor its first 10 inductees. The display is divided into 5 panels, each side portraying one of the 10 inductees. Additionally, David Kalakaua, Queen Liliuokulani, Miriam Likelike, and William Leli Ohoku are honored as patrons of Hawaii's musical culture in a separate portion of the display. The Hawaiian Music Hall of Fame will eventually become a museum. Its mission is to provide a single permanent gathering place where people can learn about and enjoy Hawaii's unique musical culture and history.
It was the idea that there was no single place where Hawaiian music could be celebrated, where education could be passed on to the children, where there could be a pride in Hawaiian music that was missing. It was scattered. Many other sounds have come to the children. So someone said to me not too long ago, what has happened is we've created a whole new context in which to hold Hawaiian music and in which to pass it on and give it a place where people can come and listen. I'm speaking from a fresh enthusiasm of just coming from one of our wonderful board meetings. I get so energized, I'm just bouncing all over the place because there's so much enthusiasm and energy for this. We do want a physical place for a museum, and it's more than a museum, where school children can come by the busload and have a wonderful, wonderful concert by, say, Auntie Irmgard or any one of the wonderful people who are steeped in history that have a little talk story that they can give while they play, that can talk about the inductees, that can talk about the flowers, the place names that are being sung about, the elements, the sea and the winds that are being talked about in the music. It's an immense thing that children can learn, and by learning it that way, they're learning it the way their grandparents learned it, at the feet of their elders. I love that very much.
The crowd assembles at the foot of the stairs of the Honolulu Academy of Arts. Tonight, local Taoist priest, the Reverend Dwayne Pang, blesses the opening of the exhibition, Tomb Treasures from China. As with other major exhibitions, the Academy staff has prepared a cultural experience for the duration of the show. The lion brings good luck to the new show and is greeted by Academy Director George Ellis. The exhibition is now opened. Tonight's crowd will be the first of thousands of visitors that will pass by centuries of incredible art. Everyone wants to see the large terracotta figures. But also on view are other artifacts from other Chinese aristocratic tombs. In this gallery, 65 pieces represent the glory of the Qin, Han, and the Tang dynasties. Honolulu is the final stop after a successful trip to San Francisco and Fort Worth, Texas. Several weeks earlier, special guests and museum supporters were treated with the first view of the figure. Inside, with his ears pricked forward, as if he could hear the welcoming applause, stands a cavalry horse of the Qin army, more than 2,000 years old. Soon he will be joined with soldiers and archers, dancing girls and camels. Immortality is a strong, ancient belief. For the early Chinese, an afterlife was real and an extension of their earthly existence. It was then imperative for the ruling classes to be well prepared for the life to come. The first emperor of China was Qin Shi Huangdi. He brought China together in lasting ways: a written language, the Great Wall of China, standardized weights and measures. While doing so, he was also having his mausoleum constructed. The tomb is at the bottom of Mount Li, outside the present-day city of Xi'an, in the western part of China.
There was a wooden roof over all of this.
But none can compare with the archaeological discovery of the army of the first emperor. The location of the army was discovered in 1974. Covered by dirt for centuries, the figures are being reclaimed by careful digging in pits as seen in this model. More than 7,700 warriors, chariots, and horses have come to light. It is fitting for the first emperor to have such a magnificent army. During his life, he had unified China for the first time by conquering the warring states. In his death, these soldiers and the rest of the immortal army were commissioned to fight any obstacle facing the emperor on his trip to the afterlife. There were generals, archers, servants, and the cavalry. The figures were made from the fine clay found in the Xi'an region. Basic parts were made from molds and then assembled to create a particular member of a certain rank. The general wears a long-sleeved robe under a vest of fish scale armor with a scarf at his neck. Waiting for his orders, the servant wears a simple robe. What is remarkable is the detail and individuality of each figure. Using a fine coating of wet clay, called slip, the artists were able to define distinguishing features such as facial expressions, hairstyles, and even bows on shoes. Once these figures were brightly painted and held weapons, but time and the elements robbed the graves and left only terracotta surfaces. But why construct life-sized clay figures made so realistic that each one is different? As Chinese-born artist Betty Eke explains, it was customary in earlier periods dating to 1500 BC to kill the king's household and bury them with him.
And it's not really we can consider it as a pure cruelty because they kill them, but they will live into another world. And the same time as he had served the king in his lifetime, they will follow him to the other world.
This other world was considered to be a better place, and the sacrifice of life was appropriate. But a century later, this practice was criticized.
Down to the Qing dynasty, and he couldn't just kill living armies to go with him, and then he built those figures.
The collection also featured other funerary objects from succeeding dynasties. At this time, the ancient capital in western China, Xi'an, was a terminus on the Silk Road. Through its gates came traders and travelers from foreign places, and the later tombs of the Han and Tang dynasties would reflect this cultural diversity. In the collection, it became apparent that certain images persisted through the ages. This gilt bronze horse of the Western Han dynasty was fashioned after a heavenly horse. Originally, it was intended to be used to trade for actual horses. After the offer was refused, it later became a tomb treasure. It is the largest gilt bronze piece found in a Chinese tomb. This mortal horse from the Tang dynasty is elegantly groomed. His muscles are better defined than earlier pieces. His pose indicates as if he is listening to music, ready to dance. One emperor of the Tang period did own dancing horses. Such a horse is depicted on a silver flask. This one also drank from a dish. But the most important role for the horse was in the cavalry. These earlier pieces of mounted men are from the Western Han period, 200 years before Christ. They are ready to fight on their sturdy steeds. The heavenly horse appears again in this beautiful jade piece from the Han dynasty. This horse could carry a person into the immortals' realms. Other animals were always present in the tombs, such as this jade bear. Serving as an amulet, it endowed the owner with strength and courage. A goose that is a bronze lamp, and other domesticated animals one might need in the next world. For the travelers on the Silk Road that connected China with the West, the camel was the best means of transportation. These tomb figures remind us of the exotic life in Xi'an during the Han and Tang periods. The tombs, of course, contained figurines that also represented the contemporary times and needs of the persons seeking the afterlife. Popular in the Tang tombs, the purpose of these soldiers was to scare off evil spirits. As with other pieces from the later periods, these figures are well developed in their musculature and costume. But all was not warfare. Musicians and dancing ladies abound in the tombs. Years later, this graceful Tang period dancer is the epitome of high fashion. Her shoes gives the illusion of clouds. Her dress is stylized with a low neckline and long sleeves. Her coiffure is enormous loops of hair, and her face is classic. This tomb figure shows the presence of Africans, known as the Kulan. They were popular dancers in their native costumes. The presence of these ladies showed a shift in attitude about the ideal beauty. In their flowing gowns and elegant coiffures, they convey dignity and class. When art is excellent, it will withstand the passage of time. It carries information about life in those earlier days, even when it was never meant to be seen at all.